stood at the observation deck of Orbital Station, watching the stars with cold fury in her golden eyes. Behind her, the holographic message from the Galactic Council still floated in the air, its words burning into her mind like poison. A human. They wanted her to bond with a human. She was one of the greatest warriors of the Empire. Her psychic abilities could crush starship hulls. Her blade had ended 1,000 enemies. For 300 years, she had served her people with honor and pride. And now, the Council wanted her to tie her life to one of the weakest species in the known galaxy. Humans lived barely 100 years. They had no psychic powers. Their bodies were soft and fragile. They could not survive in space without machines. They could not read minds or move objects with thought. In every way that mattered, they were inferior. Yet Earth had become important. The humans controlled key trade routes and their strange technology had proven useful. The alliance between the Empire and Earth needed strengthening. And so, the Council had arranged a political bonding, a marriage in human terms. Mother, High Priestess Mora, had agreed to it without even asking her daughter's opinion. The door behind her opened with a soft hiss, did not turn around. "He has arrived," said a calm voice. It was her brother, Lord. The human shuttle just docked at Bay 7. "I do not care," said. "You should at least meet him. Mother expects you at the welcome ceremony." Finally turned. Her tall, elegant form was covered in ceremonial armor that gleamed like liquid silver. Her long white hair flowed behind her like a river of moonlight. She was considered extraordinarily beautiful. The idea that she would be wasted on a human made her sick. "Tell Mother I will attend," she said coldly, "but I make no promises about my behavior." The welcome ceremony took place in the great hall of the station. Hundreds of nobles gathered to witness the arrival of the human delegation. Stood at the front, beside her mother and brother, her face a mask of barely controlled disgust. The doors opened, and the humans entered. There were 5 of them. At the front walked a tall man in a military uniform. His name tag read Commander. Behind him came a woman in diplomatic robes, Ambassador Bin. And behind them, walking quietly with his hands clasped in front of him, was a young man in simple gray clothes. Park 1 studied him with open contempt. He was average height for a human, which made him short compared to His black hair was neat but plain. His face was calm, almost peaceful. He looked like nothing special. He looked like exactly what she had feared, ordinary, weak, and completely beneath her. Commander stepped forward and bowed respectfully. "High Priestess Mora, we thank you for receiving us. On behalf of Earth and the United Human Coalition, we present Park 1 as the chosen partner for the bonding alliance." Mora nodded graciously. "We welcome humanity to our station. May this union bring peace and strength to both our peoples." Could stay silent no longer. She stepped forward, her golden eyes fixed on one like a predator examining prey. "This is what Earth sends us," she said, her voice echoing through the hall. "This, ordinary creature, I have fought enemies that would destroy him with a single thought. I have conquered worlds, and you expect me to bond with this?" The hall went silent. The human delegation tensed. Ambassador Bin's face tightened with controlled anger. But one simply looked at with those calm, dark eyes. He did not flinch. He did not look away. He did not seem angry or afraid. "I understand your frustration," he said quietly. His voice was soft but clear. "I did not choose this either, but I am here and I will do my duty." His response surprised her. She had expected him to cower or apologize. Instead, he simply accepted her insult and moved on. It was strange. It was also infuriating. "Your duty," repeated with a cold laugh. "What could a human possibly offer the Empire? You have no power, you have no gifts, you are nothing." "Perhaps," one said, "but nothing can sometimes be useful." It was such an odd thing to say. Did not understand it, and she did not care to try. She turned to her mother. "I will not bond with this creature," she announced. "Find another way to secure the alliance." Mora's expression did not change, but her voice carried steel. "The contract is signed, daughter. The bonding will proceed. You may take time to adjust, but you will fulfill your duty to our people." Wanted to argue, but she knew that tone. Her mother would not be moved. With a final glare at one, she turned and stormed out of the hall, her silver armor gleaming as she disappeared through the doors. The ceremony continued without her. The human delegation was shown to their quarters. Gifts were exchanged. Diplomatic words were spoken. Through it all, one remained quiet and composed, accepting everything with the same peaceful expression. Later that night, sat alone in her private chambers, trying to calm her mind through meditation. It was a common practice for the reaching out with their psychic senses to touch the minds around them, feeling the flow of consciousness that connected all living things. She could sense everyone on the station, the busy thoughts of servants, the proud minds of nobles, the sharp awareness of guards. Each consciousness was like a star in an endless sky, bright and clear. But when she reached toward the human quarters, she found something strange. The other humans were there, dim lights compared to minds but still visible, Commander's disciplined thoughts, Ambassador Bin's careful calculations, the staff members' simple concerns. And then there was one. Or rather, there was nothing. Where his mind should be, found only emptiness, not weakness, not silence, complete and absolute void. It was as if he did not exist at all, as if his body was walking around without any consciousness inside it. Pulled back from her meditation, her heart's racing with sudden unease. In 300 years of life, she had never encountered anything like this. Every living thing had a psychic presence. Every creature with a brain could be sensed, even if only faintly. But Park One was a hole in reality, a hollow man. She stared at the wall of her chamber, her earlier contempt now mixed with something new. Something very close to fear. What had Earth really sent her? 3 days passed and could not stop thinking about the void she had sensed in Park One's mind. She tried to tell herself it meant nothing. Perhaps human brains were simply too primitive for senses to detect. Perhaps he was mentally damaged in some way. There had to be a simple explanation. But deep inside, she knew those explanations were wrong. She had sensed the other humans clearly enough. Only one was different. Only he was empty. She decided to investigate. On the 4th day, went to observe the human in secret. She told herself it was to find weakness, to gather evidence that would help her break the bonding contract. But truly, she was curious, and hated being curious about a human. She found him in the training grounds reserved for the human delegation. The space was small compared to standards, but adequate for their needs. Most of the human soldiers were practicing combat drills with their strange projectile weapons, but one was alone in a corner, sitting on the floor with his eyes closed. He was meditating. Watch from the shadows, studying him with both her eyes and her psychic senses. Once again, she reached out toward his mind. Once again, she found nothing but void. She pushed harder, using techniques that could pierce the mental shields of trained warriors. She applied pressure that would make ordinary minds crack and reveal their secrets. Nothing happened. The void remained absolute. One opened his eyes and looked directly at her hiding spot. "You can come out," he said calmly. "I know you are there." Froze for a moment, then stepped out of the shadows with forced dignity. "How did you know?" "I felt you watching," he said simply. "That is impossible. Humans cannot sense psychic observation." One smiled slightly. It was a gentle expression without mockery or pride. "Perhaps I am not a typical human." Walked closer, studying him with new intensity. "What are you? I cannot read your mind. I cannot sense your presence. You are like a hole in the fabric of reality." "Is that what I feel like?" One seemed genuinely interested. "I have never been examined by a before, Most psychic species avoid humans. They find us uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is one word for it. Crouched down to his level, her golden eyes searching his face. Tell me the truth. Are you some kind of weapon? Did Earth send you here to spy on us? I am not a spy, one said. I am exactly what I appear to be, a man chosen for a political bonding, nothing more. But there was something in the way he said it. Not a lie exactly, but not the complete truth either. Could not read his mind, but she had centuries of experience reading faces and voices. He was hiding something. Before she could press further, Commander approached. The military man bowed respectfully too, then addressed one. They have invited us to observe a demonstration of their combat techniques, he said. Your presence is requested. One rose smoothly to his feet. Of course. Watch them go, her mind churning with questions she could not answer. The demonstration took place in the great arena of the Imperial Palace, where the nobility had gathered to showcase their power. His brother, Lord, was to lead the exhibition. He was eager to impress the humans, or more accurately, eager to intimidate them. Was tall even by standards, with muscles that rippled beneath his ceremonial armor. His psychic abilities were nearly as strong as his own. As he strode into the arena, weapons floated around him, controlled by his mind alone. Humans, he announced, his voice booming across the space, today you will witness the true power of the watch and understand why we rule the stars. He proceeded to destroy target after target with devastating displays of psychic force. Stone pillars shattered, metal shields crumpled, energy barriers fell. The human delegation watched with appropriate expressions of awe. All except one, who simply observed with that same calm expression he always wore. Notice this, his pride was wounded. You, he called out, pointing at one. Human, you seem unimpressed. Perhaps you would like to test yourself against strength. The crowd murmured with excitement. This was unexpected entertainment. One shook his head politely. I am not a warrior, Lord. I would not want to waste your time. Nonsense, I will go easy on you. Smile was cruel. Unless you are afraid. It is not about fear, one said. I simply do not wish to fight. Then I will make the choice for you. Extended his hand, and psychic force wrapped around one's body. Recognized the technique. It was a grip that could crush bones if applied with full power. Her brother was using perhaps a tenth of his strength, just enough to drag the human into the arena. Except one did not move. His expression shifted from amusement to confusion. He increased the force. Still nothing. The human stood exactly where he was, as if the psychic grip did not exist. The crowd fell silent. Interesting, muttered. He walked forward and drew his energy blade, a weapon that could cut through starship armor. If I cannot move you, perhaps I can cut you. Wanted to intervene. This was going too far, but she was frozen, watching with the same terrible fascination as everyone else. Strug. His blade passed through one like he was made of smoke. There was no resistance, no impact. The weapon simply moved through the human's body as if he was not there. One did not dodge. He did not even seem to notice. Stumbled back, shocked. He struck again, faster this time, with more power. Again, the blade passed through empty space where one's chest should have been. And again. And again. Each strike found nothing. Each attack missed despite being aimed perfectly. One stood completely still, his hands behind his back, his expression almost bored. Finally he moved. It was a small motion, just 2 fingers catching his wrist as he swung again, but the grip was unbreakable. And then, with a gentle push that should not have been possible, one sent Lord flying across the arena. His brother hit the far wall with a crash that echoed through the silent chamber. He slid to the ground, stunned but not seriously hurt. The crowd exploded with confused shouts and fearful whispers. Nothing like this had ever happened. No one had ever defeated a warrior so easily. No one had ever touched Lord without permission. One stood in the center of the arena, alone and calm. He looked at the shocked faces around him, then bowed slightly. "I apologize for the disruption," he said softly. "I did try to avoid this." Then he walked back to his seat beside Commander, leaving an entire civilization's understanding of humanity shattered behind him. Stared at the human with wide eyes, her heart's pounding in her chest. Everything she thought she knew was wrong. Every assumption she had made was false. Park 1 was not weak. Park 1 was not ordinary. And suddenly realized that she had no idea what he really was. The arena remained in chaos long after one returned to his seat. Nobles argued with each other. Guards moved to protect Lord, who was already recovering from his impact with the wall. High Priestess Mora stood frozen, her ancient face showing more emotion than had seen in decades. Herself pushed through the crowd, her mind racing with impossible questions. She had to understand. She had to know. She found one in the corridor outside the arena, walking calmly toward the human quarters as if nothing had happened. Commander walked beside him, looking neither surprised nor concerned. That was almost as strange as one's display itself. "Stop," commanded. One turned to face her. "Lady, I expected you would want to talk." "What are you?" The question burst from her like water breaking through a dam. "No species in the galaxy can do what you just did. Psychic force cannot touch you. Physical weapons pass through you. You threw my brother across an arena with 2 fingers. What are you?" One looked at her for a long moment. Then he glanced at Commander, who gave a small nod. "This conversation should not happen in a public corridor," one said. "Will you come to my quarters? I will explain what I can." Every instinct told this was dangerous. A few hours ago, she had believed this human was weak and harmless. Now she knew he was powerful beyond her understanding. Going alone into his private space could be walking into a trap. But her need for answers was stronger than her caution. "Lead the way," she said. The human quarters were simple compared to standards. Plain walls, basic furniture, no decorations or displays of status. One sat on a cushion on the floor and gestured for it to take a seat across from him. Commander remained standing by the door, silent and watchful. "Before I explain," one began, "I must ask for your understanding. What I tell you is not widely known. Among humans, only a small number carry this knowledge. We have kept it secret for centuries, for reasons that will become clear." Nodded slowly. "I am listening." "Humans are not what the galaxy believes us to be," one said. His voice was quiet but steady. "We are not weak. We are not primitive. We are different, and we have chosen to hide our true nature from the rest of the universe." He paused, collecting his thoughts. "Several centuries ago, during a period of great scientific advancement on Earth, we discovered something about ourselves, something that changed everything. We found that human consciousness exists slightly out of phase with normal reality." Frowned. "What does that mean?" "Reality, as most species experience it, is fixed, solid. Things exist in one place at one time, but for certain humans this is not true. We can shift. We can exist between states. We can slip outside the normal rules of physics and return when we choose." "That is impossible," said, but her voice lacked conviction. She had just seen him do the impossible with her own eyes. "They are among the most powerful psychic species in the galaxy," one continued. "Your abilities are impressive and real, but they still operate within the normal framework of reality. My abilities do not. When I shift, I step outside that framework entirely. Your psychic grip could not hold me because I was not entirely there to hold. Your brother's blade passed through me because, for that moment, I existed somewhere else." His mind struggled to process this information, and all humans can do this. "Not all. The ability varies. Some humans can only shift slightly. They might heal faster or react quicker or survive injuries that should kill them. Others, like myself, can shift almost completely. We can manipulate probability. We can exist in multiple states at once. We can, when necessary, reach into the space between dimensions. Why hide this? Demanded. With such power, humans could dominate the galaxy. One's expression grew sad. That is exactly why we hide it. We learned long ago what happens when species discover power before wisdom. We watched the galaxy's history. We saw empires rise and fall. We saw the destruction that comes from using strength without understanding. Commander spoke for the first time. Humanity made a choice. We decided that we would not conquer. We would not rule. We would watch and learn and help when we could, but we would never take power by force. The galaxy is safer when it believes we are weak. Sat in silence, absorbing this revelation. Everything she had believed about humans was wrong. The contempt she had felt seemed foolish now. These people were not inferior. They were so advanced that they had chosen humility as a way of life. "Why tell me this?" she finally asked. "Why reveal your secret to a warrior you barely know?" One met her eyes. "Because we are to be bonded, and because you deserve the truth. I could not build a partnership on lies, even lies of omission." "There is more," said. It was not a question. This bonding was not truly arranged by the council, was it? Humanity wanted it to happen. You wanted to be paired with me specifically. One hesitated before answering. "You are perceptive." "Yes, the bonding was requested by us. The council believes they created it for political purposes, but we encouraged the idea." "Why me?" For the first time, one looked uncertain. "That is harder to explain. Part of my ability involves sensing probability, seeing the possible paths the future might take. When I look ahead, I see countless timelines, countless possibilities. And in almost every timeline where humanity and the work closely together, you are at the center." "What happens in the timelines where we do not work together?" asked. One's face darkened. "Destruction. Your world burns, other worlds burn. Something terrible is coming, something that threatens all life in this region of space. And in the futures where we stop it, you and I are standing together." Felt a chill run through her body. She was a warrior. She had faced death many times. But the certainty in one's voice, the weight in his words, this was something different, something worse than any enemy she had fought. "What is coming?" she asked. "I do not know exactly," one admitted. "The probability streams are unclear, but it is old, it is hungry, and it will arrive soon." Stood up abruptly, packing across the small room. Her mind was overwhelmed. A few days ago, her biggest problem was being forced into a political marriage. Now she was hearing about hidden human powers and coming apocalypse. She stopped at the window looking out at the stars. So peaceful, so unchanging. Hard to believe that something terrible lurked out there in the darkness. "I was wrong about you," she said quietly, not turning around. "I treated you with contempt. I called you weak and worthless." "You acted according to what you believed," one said. "I do not hold it against you." "You should. I was cruel." "Perhaps, but cruelty born from ignorance can be forgiven. What matters now is what we do going forward." Finally turned to face him. The proud warrior who had demanded the bonding be cancelled now looked at the quiet human with new eyes. Not with attraction, not yet, but with respect, with curiosity, with the beginning of something that might become much more. "Teach me," she said. "Teach me what you know. Help me understand. If something terrible is coming, I want to be ready to fight it." One smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine. "I was hoping you would say that." And somewhere in the depths of space, far beyond the reach of any sensor or scout, ancient eyes opened after sleep. The swarm was waking, and it was hungry. The warning came on a cold morning, 3 weeks after one's revelation. Was training with him in the private gardens of the imperial palace when the emergency alarms began to sound across the capital city. In those 3 weeks, much had changed between them. No longer looked at one with contempt. She watched him with fascination instead, trying to understand the mystery he represented. He had begun teaching her about human philosophy, their strange beliefs about power and restraint, their histories of war and peace, their long journey toward wisdom. She still did not fully understand him, but she no longer wanted to escape their bonding. If anything, she found herself looking forward to their daily meetings. Now, as the alarm screamed overhead, both of them raced toward the command center. They found High Priestess Mora already there, surrounded by military commanders and holographic displays. Her ancient face was pale with fear, an expression had never seen before. Mother said, "What is happening?" Mora gestured toward the largest display. It showed a star map of space, with 3 colony worlds highlighted in red. "They are gone," Mora said, her voice trembled. 3 colonies, billions of our people, gone in a matter of hours. "Gone," repeated. "What do you mean, gone?" "Consumed." A admiral stepped forward. His face was gray with shock. "Our scouts found nothing but dead worlds. The atmosphere, the water, the soil, everything stripped away. Even the rocks were partially dissolved. Something ate those planets." One moved closer to the display, his calm expression giving way to focused intensity. "Show me the attack patterns, the direction of approach." The admiral looked at Mora, uncertain whether to share military information with a human. But Mora nodded, and the display shifted to show trajectory lines. "They came from the outer rim," the admiral explained. "From the direction of dead space, the region where no ships travel because there is nothing there. No stars, no planets, no resources." "Not nothing," one said quietly. "Something was sleeping there, something old." "You know what this is?" Mara demanded. "I know what it might be. The ancient records speak of a species that existed before the current civilizations arose. They called themselves nothing. They had no language, no individual identity. They were simply hunger given form, a hive mind that consumed everything in its path." "The Devourer swarm," Commander said. He had entered the command center silently, his face grim. "Humanity has heard the legends too. We thought they were extinct." "Apparently not." One studied the display with growing concern. "They must have consumed their entire region of space and then entered dormancy, waiting for new prey to evolve. Now they have awakened." Mora straightened her spine, pushing past her fear. "Can they be fought?" "Every civilization that faced them was destroyed," one said. "They adapt to every weapon. Psychic attacks only feed them energy. Physical weapons are absorbed and incorporated into their structure, but those civilizations were alone." He turned to look at Mora, then they did not have allies. The fleet mobilized within days. Hundreds of warships, the pride of the Empire, gathered at the border of threatened space. Was assigned to the flagship, commanding a squadron of elite warriors. She requested that one be allowed to accompany her. High Priestess Mora initially refused. A political partner had no place in a military operation. But one spoke privately with the High Priestess, and whatever he said changed her mind. Did not know what words he used, but her mother looked at the human differently afterward, with something almost like hope. On the warship discovered a new side of one. He was kind to everyone he met. He learned the names of common soldiers. He sat with injured crew members and listened to their fears. He helped engineers solve problems they had struggled with for months. He was everywhere, talking to everyone, and everywhere he went, morale improved. Watched him during a quiet moment in the observation lounge. He stood at the window, gazing at the stars with a peaceful expression that seemed impossible given their situation. "You are not afraid," she said, approaching him. "I am always afraid," he replied, "but fear does not control me." "How? We are flying toward an enemy that has destroyed every civilization it ever encountered. How can you be so calm?" One turned to face her, because fear is just information. It tells us that danger exists, but it does not tell us what to do about the danger. That requires thought, planning, and courage. I have learned to feel the fear and then set it aside so I can think clearly. Is that a human teaching? It is something I learned from my teacher, Commander. He was once a soldier in a great war on Earth. He saw terrible things. He lost many friends, but he survived by understanding that his mind was his own, and no amount of horror could take that from him. Moved to stand beside him at the window. Their reflections floated among the stars like ghosts. I must ask you something, she said, and I need the truth. I will give it if I can. Why did you really agree to this bonding? The probability visions you mentioned, I understand they showed us together, but surely you could have found another way. Why would you tie yourself to a woman who hated you? One was quiet for a long moment before answering. Because in every timeline I saw, you were the key to everything. Not me, you, your strength, your courage, your ability to inspire others. I am just a catalyst, someone whose presence helps you become what you were always meant to be. And what is that? A leader, a unifier, someone who can bring together not just but all the species of this galaxy. The war we are flying toward is only the beginning. What comes after will require someone with your qualities. I am here to support you, to help you see what you are capable of. Felt something shift inside her chest. No one had ever spoken to her like this. All her life, she had been valued for her fighting ability, her psychic power, her noble bloodline. No one had ever looked deeper. No one had ever seen her as something more than a warrior. Until now. I was wrong about you, she said softly. I keep being wrong about you. That is growth, one said with a gentle smile. Being wrong and learning from it is how we become better. The alarm interrupted their conversation. A calm, mechanical voice echoed through the ship. Enemy contact detected. All hands to battle stations. The swarm has been sighted. And one raced to the bridge. They showed a sight that stopped our hearts. The swarm was not a fleet. It was a wave. Millions of creatures, ranging from tiny parasites to beasts larger than starships, filling space like a living cloud. At the center was the mothership, a nightmare of twisted organic matter and consumed technology, the size of a small moon. And it was 3 times larger than the intelligence reports had predicted. Ancestors preserve us, the Admiral whispered. Stared at the screen, feeling the weight of doom pressing down on her. This was beyond anything she had prepared for, beyond anything anyone could prepare for. Then she felt a hand close gently around hers. One stood beside her, his calm presence like a rock in a storming sea. Remember what I told you, he said quietly. You are the key to this. Whatever happens, do not forget that. The swarm charged, and the battle for survival began. The battle was a nightmare from which there was no waking. Warships fired everything they had at the advancing swarm. Energy beams carved through the darkness. Missiles exploded in brilliant flashes. Psychic attacks rippled outward in invisible waves. And still the swarm came on, absorbing every strike, adapting to every weapon, growing stronger with each passing moment. Commanded her squadron from the bridge of a heavy cruiser. She watched on the tactical display as ship after ship fell. The destroyers first, overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Then the cruisers, dragged down by tentacles of living matter. The swarm creatures swarmed over hull plates, chewing through armor, reaching into engine rooms and bridge sections. The screams of dying crews echoed through the communication channels before being cut short. Fall back to defensive positions, ordered. Concentrate fire on the larger creatures. Do not let them reach the flagship. But her commands made little difference. The swarm was everywhere, and for every creature they destroyed, 10 more took its place. On the flagship, the Admiral was coordinating what remained of the fleet. Half their ships were already gone. The rest were damaged, struggling to maintain formation. And the mothership had not even entered the battle yet. It hung back, watching, waiting, as if enjoying the slaughter. brother commanded a battle cruiser on the fleet's right flank. His ship was one of the most heavily armed in the Navy. She watched his signature on the tactical display, praying to the ancestors that he would survive. Then she watched his ship disappear. One moment the battle cruiser was there, guns blazing, shields straining. The next, a wave of massive swarm creatures engulfed it entirely. The hull crumpled like paper. The signature vanished from the display. Screamed her brother's name, but there was no response. Across the fleet, communication became chaos. Officers reported losses in voices that shook with fear. Some ships simply stopped responding altogether. And then the worst blow came. The flagship reports critical damage, an officer announced. High Priestess Mora was on the bridge. We have lost contact. Felt her world collapse. Her mother, her brother, the fleet, everything was falling apart. She sank to her knees on the bridge of her ship, watching the destruction unfold on the screens around her. The swarm mothership was finally moving, advancing toward the broken remains of the fleet. There was nothing left to stop it, nothing left to do but die. A hand touched her shoulder. One stood beside her, his face pale but calm. He had been on her ship throughout the battle, watching silently, offering quiet support. Now he knelt down to meet her eyes. "It is time," he said. "Time for what?" His voice was hollow. "We have lost. The fleet is destroyed. My family is gone. What is left?" "Me," one said simply. "I am left, and there is something I can do, something I hoped I would never have to do again." He stood up and walked toward the bridge exit, scrambled to her feet and followed him. "What are you doing? Where are you going?" "Outside," he said. "Outside? We are in the middle of a battle. You cannot survive in space without protection." One paused at the airlock door and looked back at her. His expression was filled with a sadness so deep that it made her heart's ache. "I told you once that humans hide what we truly are," he said. "I told you that we choose not to use our full power because we fear what it means. What I did not tell you was the cost of using that power when we must." "One, please." "I am going to save your people," he said. "I am going to stop the swarm, but I need you to do something for me." "Anything." "Survive. Whatever happens next, survive. The future still needs you. You are still the key to everything." Before could respond, he stepped into the airlock and sealed the door behind him. She ran to the observation window and watched as the outer door opened. One stepped into the vacuum of space without a suit, without protection, without any visible sign of distress. He did not die. He did not even seem uncomfortable. He walked across the hull of the ship as if strolling through a garden. The battle raged around him, but nothing touched him. Energy beams passed through empty air where he stood. Debris curved away from his body. The void of space itself seemed to bend around him. Then he stopped. He stood on the bow of the cruiser, facing the swarm mothership that loomed like a mountain in the darkness. He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they burned with white light. Every mind in the system heard his voice, not through communication channels, but directly, as if he was speaking inside their thoughts, and swarm alike froze as his words echoed through their consciousness. "I am sorry, I try not to do this, but you have left me no choice." He raised one hand toward the mothership. Reality cracked. There was no other way to describe it. The fabric of space itself seemed to tear, revealing something behind it, a darkness deeper than any void, an emptiness that was not absence but presence, a dimension where nothing could exist, where matter and energy had no meaning. The rift spread from one's outstretched hand, growing wider and wider, and the swarm mothership began to move toward it, not willingly, but dragged by forces beyond comprehension. The massive organic structure twisted and groaned as it was pulled toward the tier in reality. The swarm creatures across the battlefield began to scream, not just the ones near the rift, but all of them. Every single creature in the system was connected to the mothership, and they felt its death approaching. Billions of creatures were pulled into the void between dimensions. The rift consumed them like a hungry mouth, swallowing their bodies, their minds, their very existence. There was no explosion, no flash of light. They simply ceased to be. Watched in awe and terror, as one unmade an army that had threatened all of civilization. It took less than a minute. The swarm mothership collapsed into the rift and vanished. The countless smaller creatures followed, dragged screaming into oblivion. And then the rift closed, leaving nothing behind but empty space and the battered remains of the fleet. One collapsed on the hull of the ship. Was running before she knew she was moving. She grabbed a pressure suit and was at the airlock in seconds. She overrode the safety protocols and cycled through before the pressure fully equalized. She found him floating just off the hull, unconscious, his skin pale as death but still somehow alive in the vacuum. She grabbed his arm and pulled him back inside, carrying him to the medical bay, screaming for doctors. As she ran through the corridors with one in her arms, she realized she was crying, not from fear, not from grief for her family, though that pain still burned. She was crying because of what she had felt during his attack. She had sensed it, felt it through whatever strange connection had formed between them. For that brief moment when one used his power, she had felt everything he felt. The weight of every death, every consciousness he extinguished, every life he ended to save others. He felt them all, every single one of the billions of creatures he destroyed. And he bore that weight willingly. Because that was what love meant to him, not just caring about the ones you want to protect, but accepting the cost of protecting them, no matter how terrible that cost might be. Held him and ran faster. He had to survive. He had to wake up. Because now she understood. She had despised the idea of a human mate. But somewhere in the fire and darkness of battle, she had fallen in love with him. One slept for 7 days. Never left his side. The medical bay became her home, the chair beside his bed her throne. She ate when the doctors forced her to and slept only when exhaustion claimed her. Every hour she checked his vital signs. Every night she held his hand and whispered words she had never spoken to anyone. On the 3rd day, they told her about her family. Her brother was dead. His body was found floating among the wreckage of his ship. He had died fighting, true to his nature until the end. Mourned him with silent tears, remembering the boy he had once been before pride and arrogance had hardened him. But her mother lived. High Priestess Mora had been badly injured in the attack on the flagship. Burns covered half her body, and her psychic abilities were temporarily damaged. But she survived, and she was recovering in another section of the medical bay. On the 4th day, Mora came to see one herself. She entered the room slowly, her body wrapped in healing bandages, moving with the aid of a floating support chair. Rose to help her, but Mora waved her away. "I came to see him," Mora said, "the human who saved us all." Nodded and stepped back. Mora floated closer to the bed, studying one's pale face with eyes that had seen centuries pass. For a long moment, she was silent. "I watched the recordings," she finally said. "Every ship that survived captured images of what he did. I have seen many things in my life, daughter. I have witnessed the rise and fall of empires. I have watched stars die, but I have never seen anything like that." "Neither have I," said quietly. "I thought I understood power," Mora continued. "I thought the stood at the peak of evolution. We were wrong. This human makes our greatest warriors look like children." "He does not want power," said. "He only used it because there was no other way." "I know," Mora's voice was soft. "I could see it in his face before he attacked. He did not want to destroy those creatures, but he did it anyway because he cared more about saving lives than about his own peace. That is true strength. That is what we should have been teaching our warriors all along." Looked at her mother with surprise. She had never heard Mora speak like this. The high priestess was always proud, always certain. This humility was something new. "The galaxy knows now," Mora said. "Word of what happened has spread. Every species with access to communication networks has seen the recordings. The secret humanity kept for centuries has been revealed in one terrible moment." Felt a chill. What are they saying? They are afraid. Many species are demanding that humans be contained, studied, controlled. Others are bowing to them as gods, and still others are refusing to believe what they saw. Mora was quiet for a moment. "They are grateful. One saved our empire. Whatever fears we might have, we cannot forget that." On the 6th day, Ambassador Bin arrived at the medical station. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been coordinating humanity's response to the exposure of their secret, traveling between worlds, speaking to terrified leaders. Now she came to check on the man who had caused the revelation. Met her in the corridor outside the medical bay. "How is he?" Bin asked. "Still sleeping. The doctors say his body is recovering, but his mind. They do not know. They have never treated anyone like him before." Bin nodded slowly. "Using the shift at that level takes a terrible toll. He will wake eventually, but he may never be the same." "What happens now?" asked. "The galaxy knows about humanity. They fear you. What will you do?" "We will tell them the truth," Bin said. "The whole truth. It is time." On the 7th day, Ambassador Bin addressed the Galactic Council. Every species with representation was there, either in person or through holographic link. The chamber was filled with fear and suspicion. Armed guards surrounded the human delegation. Weapons were aimed at Bin from every angle. She stood calmly before them all and spoke. "You have seen what one human can do. You are afraid. I understand. But fear comes from misunderstanding, so let me give you understanding." She activated a holographic display showing humanity's history, their long journey from primitive beginnings to interstellar presence. Humans have always had these abilities. We did not gain them recently. We did not steal them from another species. They are part of what we are, woven into our very nature, but we chose not to use them. "Why?" demanded a representative from a powerful trading federation. "With such power, you could have conquered everything." "Because conquest is a path to ruin," Bin said. "We studied the galaxy's history. We watched empires rise through force and crumble into dust. We watched powerful species destroy themselves, and we decided we did not want that fate." She paused, letting her words settle. "Humanity could have taken everything. Instead, we took almost nothing. We pretended to be weak. We let others believe they were stronger than us. We focused on trade, diplomacy, culture, anything but war. Because we understood that true power lies not in what you can destroy, but in what you can build." "Pretty words," said another representative. "But what guarantee do we have that you will not change your minds, that you will not decide to conquer us tomorrow?" "No guarantee," Bin admitted. "Only our history, centuries of choosing peace when we could have chosen war, generations of hiding our strength when we could have revealed it. We did not protect them because we wanted their gratitude or their submission. We protected them because it was right, because that is who we are." "We are not your rulers," she concluded. "We never wanted to be. We are your guardians, your protectors. We only act when extinction threatens, and when the crisis passes, we step back into the shadows." The council chamber was silent for a long moment. Then slowly a few representatives began to bow. Then more. Not all, some still watched with fear and suspicion, but many recognized the truth when they heard it. Meanwhile, in the medical bay, one opened his eyes. Was there instantly, her hand finding his. "You are awake," she whispered. "You came back to me." One blinked slowly, orienting himself. His gaze found her face and lingered there. "How long?" he asked. His voice was weak. 7 days. The swarm is gone. You destroyed them all." A shadow passed across his face. I know, I felt every one of them die. I know you did, I felt it too somehow. One looked at her with tired surprise. You felt it, that should not be possible. Perhaps, squeezed his hand, but nothing about us is normal anymore. One managed a weak smile. No, I suppose not. Movement at the doorway drew their attention. High Priestess Mora had entered, still supported by her floating chair, still wrapped in healing bandages. But she moved with purpose now, and when she reached the bedside, she did something had never seen her do in 300 years. She bowed. Park 1, Mora said formally. On behalf of the Empire, I offer you our eternal gratitude. You saved our people when we could not save ourselves. Whatever you need, whatever you want, it is yours. One looked at the ancient priestess with those calm, dark eyes. Even weakened, even exhausted, there was something in his gaze that made Mora seem small. I do not want anything, he said softly, except perhaps permission to rest a little longer. Mora straightened. Of course, rest well, guardian of our people. She floated backward and left the room, leaving One and alone. Guardian, One murmured, I suppose that is what I am now. No, said firmly, you are more than that. You are my partner, my equal. Whatever comes next, we face it together. One looked at her with an expression she had never seen before. It was hope mixed with fear, joy mixed with pain. The face of a man who had given up everything and found something unexpected in return. Together, he agreed. And somewhere in the depths of space, watching from shadows that even humans could not see, other powers took notice of what had happened. The galaxy was changing, and the age of secrets was finally ending. 1 year had passed since the Battle of the Line. The galaxy was still changing, still adjusting to the new reality. Humanity now sat openly on the Galactic Council, no longer pretending to be weak. Their representatives spoke with quiet authority, offering wisdom instead of demands. Some species still feared them. Others sought their protection. And slowly, a new kind of order was emerging, not an empire ruled by force, but a community guided by cooperation. They were at the center of this change. Their alliance with humanity had become the foundation of a new coalition. Other species joined, drawn by the promise of protection and the model of partnership between the powerful and the proud. Watched it all happen from her position at one side. She had resigned from the military in the months after the battle, not because she no longer valued strength, but because she understood now that there were other kinds of strength worth pursuing. She studied human philosophy and history, learning about the long path humanity had walked to reach their strange wisdom. She learned about their wars and their peace, their failures and their triumphs. And she learned about love. One recovered slowly from his exertion. The power he used against the swarm had cost him dearly. His abilities were diminished, perhaps permanently. He could still shift slightly, still exist between states when necessary, but the vast power he had displayed in battle was no longer easily available to him. He did not seem to mind. I was never comfortable with that power, he told one evening as they watched the sunset from the gardens of the rebuilt Imperial Palace. It made me something other than human. Now I can just be myself. And what is yourself? Asked. A man who loves a stubborn warrior, he said with a gentle smile. A man who hopes to spend whatever time he has left making the galaxy a little better. His heart beat faster at his words. Even after a year together, he could still surprise her. He still made her feel things she had never felt before. I love you too, she said. I never thought I would say those words to anyone, let alone a human, but here I am. One took her hand. Here we are. The anniversary of the battle approached, and with it came preparations for something had never expected to want, their formal bonding ceremony. It would take place at the sacred temple of the most ancient and holy site in the Empire. Leaders from dozens of species would attend. Humanity would be represented not just by diplomats, but by others like One, those who carried the power of the shift, those who had watched over the galaxy in secret for centuries. The night before the ceremony could not sleep. She walked through the temple grounds alone, looking at the stars, thinking about how much had changed. A year ago, she had despised humans. She had thought them weak and worthless. She had believed her bonding to one was a punishment, a political necessity to be endured. Now she understood that it was a gift. One found her standing at the edge of a reflecting pool, her image shimmering in the still water below. "Cannot sleep?" he asked. "Too many thoughts," she admitted, "too many feelings." He stood beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "I have something for you." He reached into his pocket and a small object. It was a crystal, pale blue and glowing with soft inner light. Recognized it immediately. It was a mind stone, a rare artifact that could store psychic impressions. "I recorded something in this," one said. "A message for you, something I wanted you to have no matter what happens in the future." Took the crystal carefully. "What is in it?" "Every moment I have spent with you that made me happy. Every memory of you smiling, laughing, arguing, fighting. Every time I looked at you and felt grateful to be alive." He paused. "I am not good with words sometimes. This was the best way I could think of to show you what you mean to me." Pressed the crystal to her forehead and opened her mind to its contents. Memories flooded through her, not just images but emotions, one's emotions. She felt what he felt when he first saw her at the welcome ceremony. She felt his admiration when she commanded her squadron in battle. She felt his joy when they talked late into the night about philosophy and history. She felt his love, deep and steady as an ocean, carrying her through storm after storm. When she lowered the crystal, tears were streaming down her face. "I do not deserve this," she whispered. "You deserve far more," one said. "You deserve everything I can give and more. I am just sorry I cannot give you more than a human lifetime." Shook her head. "I do not want more time, I want you. However long we have, it is enough." They stood together in the starlight, two beings from different worlds who had found something neither expected. The pool reflected their images, entwined now, impossible to separate. The ceremony the next day was everything it should have been. The sacred temple gleamed in the light of twin suns. Thousands of witnesses filled the ancient halls. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy watched as and Park One stood before the altar of bonding. High Priestess Mara, fully recovered now, performed the ritual. She spoke the ancient words that had joined partners for, but there were new words too, human words that one had requested be included. Words about partnership and equality, about supporting each other through difficulty, about growing together through time. When the formal vows were complete, spoke words of her own. "I despise the idea of you," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the silent temple. "I was blinded by pride and prejudice. I thought I knew what strength meant. I was wrong." She reached out and took one's hands in her own. "You showed me that true strength is the power to be gentle. That courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. That wisdom comes from admitting what we do not know. And that love, real love, means caring about someone else's happiness more than your own." One smiled at her, with warmth that filled the entire temple. "And you showed me that even the proudest heart can learn to love," he replied. "That the fiercest warrior can choose peace, that a person can change completely and still remain true to themselves. You are the reason I believe in the future. You are the reason I believe the galaxy can become something better than it has ever been." Mora raised her hands and proclaimed them bonded in the sight of all witnesses. The crowd erupted in celebration. Humans and embraced. Other species joined in the joy. For one shining moment, the entire galaxy seemed united in happiness. Later, as the celebrations continued around them, and one escaped to a quiet balcony overlooking the temple grounds. Below them, beings from dozens of worlds danced and laughed together. "This is what you saw, is it not?" asked. In your probability visions, this moment, this unity. Something like it, one admitted, though the reality is better than anything I imagined. What comes next? What do your visions show? One considered the question. Many possibilities, many challenges. The swarm was only one threat among many. There are other dangers out there, other tests we will face. But in most of the futures I see, we face them together. And in most of those futures we win. Only most raised an eyebrow. The universe is complicated, one said with a slight smile. But I believe in us, and I believe in the galaxy we are helping to build. Leaned against him, feeling his warmth against her skin. Below them, the celebration continued. Around them, the stars wheeled in their ancient patterns. And somewhere out there, in quiet corners of the galaxy, other humans watched and smiled. They had hidden for so long. They had pretended to be weak for so long. But now they could finally step into the light, not as conquerors but as partners. Not as masters but as guides. The age of secrets was over. The age of unity was beginning. And at the heart of it all, a proud warrior and a gentle human stood together, bound by love, ready for whatever came next. The future was uncertain. The challenges were many, but they would face them together. And that, in the end, was all that mattered. From the shadows of the temple, Commander watched his former student hold hands with his new partner. The old soldier smiled to himself. He had guided one for many years, preparing him for this moment. Now his work was done. He turned and walked into the crowd, disappearing among the celebration. There were other students to train, other futures to prepare for. But for now, he was happy. The galaxy had found its guardians. Love had conquered pride. And humanity's greatest gift, not their power but their capacity for connection, had finally been shared with the universe. The story was just beginning, but the first chapter had ended perfectly.